Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer and today we're going to be talking about Reddit's super popular subreddit Antiwork, and more specifically what the people in that subreddit are all about, what they are really about. This idea came to me because I usually, just go on the main page of Reddit, the popular page, and every day I'll see, you see all the posts that are top posts, but there's usually one post from the subreddit Antiwork that it's there on the popular page, and I usually read them, and what I have come to realize is that the spirit of the subreddit is more capitalist than those people realize. They claim to be anti-work, but I think the essence of what they strive for is very capitalist. So hear me out. But before we go any farther, let me read you the description of this subreddit for those people who don't know what the hell anti-work is. This is what it says on the anti-work subreddit. A subreddit for those who want to end work, are curious about ending work, want to get the most out of a work-free life, want more information on anti-work ideas, and want personal help with their own job-related struggles. So a subreddit for people who want to end work. Okay, but do they really want to end work? I mean, I don't know about you, but I think most people want to work. They just don't want shitty jobs. Do you really want to spend every waking hour of the day doing nothing but watching TV, playing video games? That stifles the brain. Your brain is gonna become mush. We need challenges, and we need that sense of accomplishing a goal, getting the reward, feeling like we're capable human beings, having pride in ourselves. It helps our self-confidence, and it just helps make life more interesting when you're working instead of when you're just idle. Although of course many of these people might argue that no, we wouldn't, if we don't work, we wouldn't be idle, we would be doing arts and things. But unless you're actually really good at art and music, you're not gonna have a lot of satisfaction from doing that on a daily basis, right? So Antiwork claims that they want to end work. However, what I have noticed is that most of the posts from that subreddit, the ones that make it to the popular page, are not really about wanting to end work. They are about wanting better working conditions. For example, let's look at this post. It says, "Boss had plans to fire me. Instead, I'm quitting 6 months before his plan, royally screwing him over." When I'm reading this post, it says that one of the main reasons this person wants to work is because the employer is discriminating against lesser paid employees and mistreats and harasses them, right? So it's not like this person is against work. He is against working for a terrible person, a terrible company, and working under terrible conditions. And who would want to work in those conditions? I wouldn't. And here's where capitalism comes in. Many of the people in this subreddit claim to be anti-capitalist because they do not want to sell their labor to the capitalists that don't value it. But notice how I put capitalists in air quotes. However, I don't think these people are as anti-capitalist as they claim to be. I actually think they are very capitalist and they don't realize it. Now, how is this possible? Well, for starters, in today's world, what we have is not capitalism as it should be. It's not the laissez-faire capitalism that capitalism is supposed to be, right? The thousands of regulations constantly telling businessmen and innovators what they can and can't do has turned what should be capitalism into a Frankenmonster of a little bit of capitalism and a lot of government regulations. And how is this related to anti-work? Well, in today's world, employers have little incentive to change anything about the way they do things because they don't have to. Why should they pay more to anybody if the government already decided what the minimum wage should be? And why should they invest more in better working conditions, better benefits, if the government says, as long as you meet these basic standards, you won't get a fine, right? As long as you meet this basic level of decent working conditions, you're fine, you're off the hook. Because the government already decided everything arbitrarily, employers have no incentive to negotiate these wages or benefits with the employees. So of course people get fed up. Like, if you consider that your labor is worth more than your employer is paying you, but then your employee just says like, well, too bad, the government says as long as I pay you $10, I'm fine, then of course everybody's gonna hate that system. However, in a true capitalist society, there would be a lot more negotiation and people would be more likely to be paid for the true worth of their labor, and not by what the government dictates. Why? Because it is in the employer's self-interest to have the best workers doing the best work. And how are they going to accomplish that? By giving the workers better working conditions, better pay, whatever it takes to get them to stay and keep doing a good job. Maybe they'll give them, a raise. They're gonna give you more flexible schedule, whatever it takes, right? For example, let's just say that in today's US, the United States, receptionists get paid $18. I don't actually know if that's what they get, but let's say they get paid $18 an hour because that's the wage for receptionists. Well, in a capitalist society, there would be no cap. So a highly skilled receptionist who considers her labor to be worth more because she is better than other receptionists can make a case with her employer that, or her future employer, prospective employer, that if he hires her, he should pay her more because she's going to deliver better work than other less skilled receptionists. So, because in this ideal society, the government hasn't dictated what the wages for receptionists should be, then in this case, the receptionist and the employer could talk it out and decide whether, come to an agreement. Should she get $28 per hour, or can they, negotiate something with like close to 28, but like better benefits, blah, 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 blah. It would be up to them. They would come up to an agreement that is mutually beneficial, something that they're both happy with, right? And yes, we'll always have the problem that there will be people who think that their labor is worth more than it actually is. Like, there might be people out there who think that they should be getting paid $100 an hour for stocking shelves. But the beauty of being in a capitalist economy, a true capitalist economy, is that the employee doesn't get to decide that. Just like the employer doesn't get to decide it either, not technically. Like, in a capitalist society, you have to come up with a mutually agreeable contract, a mutually agreeable deal. In a capitalist society, an employee would not be able to force an employer to pay him more than his labor is worth, just like an employer wouldn't get away with underpaying employees, right? With the help of the government. However, in today's world, which we have already established is not a true capitalist society, both workers and employers are forced to do just that. Employers are forced to pay whatever the government decides, and that means that sometimes employees are gonna be paid less than their actual labor is worth, that because they might be more skilled than the rest of the employees who are also getting minimum wage or whatever. And why should the employer pay the more skilled worker more if he doesn't really have to evaluate them individually? Because that's not what the government says. The government says pay them all the same amount. However, in a true capitalist society, employers would be so much more motivated to provide good working conditions to their workers. Otherwise, the workers are gonna leave, right? And who is going to perform better in the market? The company who treats their workers like crap, or the company who provides great benefits, flexible hours, good pay to their workers. Obviously, the company that is good to their workers is going to perform better because that company is going to thrive when their workers stick around, have loyalty to the company, are more motivated to do a better job, and are not quitting like they would if they ended up in a shitty company. Like that, if the shitty company is going to sink or it's not going to perform as well as the company that is good to their workers. So let's just read some of those top posts from Antiwork that kind of show how the people posting there have a very capitalist spirit, even though at first glance it doesn't show, or what they are trying to accomplish is more capitalist than they realize. So for example, there's this one very, very upvoted post that it says, if they raise minimum wage, I will have to close down my business. And then the person's complaining that that's what their employer is saying. So he says, okay, and if you can't even pay minimum wage to your workers, you shouldn't even be open for business, hire people in the first place. So this is a situation in which both the employee complaining and the employer complaining of minimum wage being stifling. This is a situation in which they could both benefit with capitalism. With capitalism, the employer would have to waste a lot less money on the regulations that come with running a business. A lot of those fees that these people have to put up with are what keeps them from not being able to pay their employees better, right? Even the pandemic, like the fact that they have to shut down, like make them lose so much money. So now they have less money to pay the employees, right? So that's just one thing. And also, a lot of these employers are subject to the rules of what part-time means and how long an employee should work for you, right? But if there was more flexibility, if it was more of a conversation between employees and employers, maybe this person could be like, okay, John does such a great job. He could do the work that this other person takes them 5 hours to do. He only takes an hour to do this job. I'm gonna pay him triple. I'm gonna pay him $30 for an hour of work instead of paying this guy, $50 for 5 hours of work. And that way it's beneficial for both, right? The very skilled employee, doesn't have to work as long, and then the employer also saves money by having to pay for less hours. And he gets better work done too, right? And he could have multiple employees that work different types of hours, and their rates are different based on their different skills, multiple crazy schedules, but that they work for everybody, right? And it's not just okay, what the government says. You have full-time employees and you have part-time employees, and part-time means 3 hours a week and no less or whatnot. I'm not actually sure how the part-time laws work, but there's little flexibility and there's little incentive for employees to change it up, right? But in a capitalist society, there would be a lot more of those conversations and negotiations and different rates, and this minimum wage thing wouldn't even be a thing. And that's also beneficial for the employees. The ones that are great at their job are obviously gonna be getting offered more paid per hour because they're better. And they would be able to get paid because their employer wouldn't be strapped for cash because of all these regulations or force shutdowns of their businesses. Now let's read this other post. It says, already underpaid, outperforming peers. Company cut pay on the same day they announce record profits. I'm done. So the gist of this post is that this guy knows himself to be a really good worker. Or it could be a woman, I don't know. And even his employers have told him, you're great, you're one of the top performers here, and yet he didn't get a pay raise. In fact, everybody got a pay cut. Like, of course, people are going to be fed up if you have to put up with things like this. And these things happen because the employers can get away with it if the government allows them to, and the employees have no better options to go to because the government makes it so hard in the first place for new businesses to come up. So if new businesses, even if they're like gonna be great to their employees, if they can even get their business off the ground, how are they ever going to be able to become a company that can actually offer jobs, better jobs, right? So this is what I'm arguing. If you want a better work culture, better work-life balance, better paid, like the people in anti-work want, I really think you need more capitalism, not less. What anti-work wants the government to help them accomplish, like better pay, better benefits, better work-life balance, could actually be achieved much faster by unfettered capitalism. Anti-capitalists think that by getting the government to force companies and employers to meet minimum wage requirements and stuff like that, that they're going to accomplish a better working world to working, but they're actually shooting themselves in the foot. By getting the government involved, you stifle innovation, you take away the incentive from employers to do better, you take negotiation off the table, and you waste so much time. Like the time that these companies and employers spent trying to fight regulations or trying to file the paperwork required to meet the requirements of regulations, that'd be time that they could actually use instead of wasting that time doing all those things. So they could use that time to negotiate with you. Negotiate better pay, negotiate better benefits, blah, blah, blah. And time is money. Like that time these companies spend trying to fight regulations or like just, doing the paperwork necessary to run a business or whatnot, that costs money. That if they didn't have to deal with that, they could use that money to provide better working conditions for their employees. If only we lived in a capitalist society. And one more thing to mention is attitude. The relationship between employees and employers would be so much better in a capitalist society because nobody would be forced to do anything they didn't want to. Of course, right now, in the world we live in, they see each other as enemies in a way because you're forced to do things for the other that you don't really want to, that you didn't agree on, and you just have to do it because the government told you to. There can be goodwill among people who know they are each other's pawns that the government gets to play with. So there you have it. That is my argument. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the anti-work who are like, no, I am a Marxist. I don't agree with you. I hate capitalism. But honestly, I think that what a lot of them in that subreddit are trying to achieve is what could be easily achieved through capitalism, as I argued in this whole video. Anyways, that was the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it until the end, until this point, why don't you subscribe and give it a like? Okay, I will see you on the next one.